April 9, 2026, in the pitch-black choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, a wall of fire erupted from the jagged cliffs of Chesham Island. 6 Nor anti-ship missiles screamed off their mobile launchers, their solid fuel boosters punching white-hot jets through the pre-dawn darkness as they locked onto the 100,000-ton mass of the USS Abraham Lincoln, flagship of the 5th Fleet Carrier Strike Group, enforcing the U.S.-imposed maritime corridor to reopen global oil lanes. The ceasefire between the United States and Iran, brokered in Islamabad just 26 hours earlier, had lasted exactly one sunrise before the first missile was in the air. Inside the Lincoln's Combat Information Center, the Spy-6 radar array instantly registered the thermal spikes. The Aegis combat system designated the inbounds alpha through Foxtrot, Maui assigning RIM-174SM6 intercept solutions in 1.4 seconds. But tonight, something was catastrophically wrong. The intercept windows were off by 11 to 14 degrees, a variance impossible with a system of this precision. Watch Officer Commander Elaine Torres recognized the signature immediately. The Nor missiles were executing unpredictable terminal maneuvers their flight profiles had never shown before. Someone had upgraded Iran's guidance algorithm in the last 48 hours. Someone with orbital infrastructure the IRGC didn't have. The answer had already arrived at Fort Meade, Maryland, in an NSA intercept stamped Eyes Only, labeled Thunderclap Red. At 23:44 hours the previous evening, a Russian Persona 2M imaging satellite and a Chinese Beidou 3G4 military reconnaissance satellite had executed synchronized orbital burns, bringing them into a 97-minute overlapping coverage window directly above the 5th Fleet operating zone. Both satellites were simultaneously feeding encrypted telemetry to an IRGC signals facility buried beneath Bandar Abbas Naval Base, providing Iran with real-time positional fixes on every U.S. warship in the strike group, accurate to within 4 meters. The Nor missiles weren't flying on Iranian algorithms, they were flying on Moscow and Beijing's eyes. This was not Iran acting alone. This was the opening salvo of a 3-nation coordinated kill chain, and the U.S. Navy was square in the center of the targeting reticle. The road to this moment had been 40 days of fire and blood. On February 28, 2026, under Operation Epic Fury, the United States and Israel launched a joint air campaign that assassinated Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and struck more than 8,000 Iranian military targets, including the Natanz nuclear facility, hit with bunker buster munitions on March 21st. Iran's response was immediate and brutal, closing the Strait of Hormuz, launching coordinated ballistic missile barrages against Israel and U.S. Gulf bases, and striking U.S. forces in Kuwait. By early April, with Brent crude cresting $140 a barrel and global shipping paralyzed, the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Harry S. Truman carrier strike groups had been deployed to force the strait open under a U.S.-led maritime corridor. Russia and China had gutted the UN Security Council resolution authorizing force protection for that corridor on April 7th, stripping it down to a diplomatic paper tiger. The ceasefire brokered by Pakistan on April 7th to 8th gave Iran 2 weeks to renegotiate terms that included reopening the strait and dismantling its nuclear enrichment infrastructure. Iran's hardliners had no intention of complying, and Moscow calculated that a single catastrophic strike on an American carrier tonight would collapse U.S. leverage and hand Tehran the negotiating position it needed. The satellite feed was Russia's weapon. Iran was the trigger. Do you believe the U.S. Navy could survive an attack backed by real-time Russian and Chinese orbital intelligence? Comment your answer below. Because what happened in the next 22 minutes has never been simulated in any wargame. At 3:19 hours, Commander Torres made the call. She did not attempt to intercept all 6 missiles conventionally. With the Aegis targeting solution degraded by satellite-enhanced terminal guidance, a full SM-6 intercept salvo would drain the vertical launch cells at a suicidal rate. She ordered the Lincoln into a hard 28-knot starboard turn, simultaneously activating 3 AN/SLQ 32C electronic warfare pods in maximum Nulka active decoy mode, flooding the Nor missile's radar seekers with seductive false signatures. 2 missiles immediately went kinetically deaf, veering 340 meters off course and crashing into the sea. Simultaneously, the USS Gridley and USS Wayne E. Meyer, the the strike group's Arleigh Burke-class escorts executed a precision intercept bracket. 4 RIM-66M Standard missiles erupted from their VLS cells in a 6-second ripple salvo. 2 Iranian missiles were destroyed at 14 kilometers. One was detonated at just 2.2 kilometers, close enough that burning shrapnel scattered across the Lincoln's flight deck, wounding 3 aviation ordnance men and igniting a JP-5 fuel puddle near the jet blast deflector of Catapult 3. The 6th missile vanished from radar at 03:20:41 hours, its seeker abruptly cut. The question of who killed it would not be answered for 18 more minutes, and the answer would change everything. At 03:21 hours, the Link 16 tactical data network exploded with new contacts. 6 Siraj-class Iranian fast attack craft had emerged from behind the artificial reef infrastructure of Qeshm Island, charging at 52 knots toward the strike group's inner defensive ring. They were carrying C-802 anti-ship missiles and shoulder-fired Missile 3 man-pads. These were not suicide runs, and they were gap fillers, designed to exploit the reload intervals between the escort ship's intercept cycles. At 52 knots in the narrow strait, they had exactly 6 minutes before crossing into Phalanx C-YWS engagement range. At the same time, the P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft orbiting at 22,000 feet screamed a flash contact on the ASW frequency. Its MAD-XR magnetic anomaly detector had registered a ferromagnetic signature 400 meters below the surface, 12 kilometers off the Lincoln's port quarter. A Kilo-class submarine, the Yuns, Iran's most advanced diesel-electric boat, covertly upgraded in 2024 by Russian engineers with anechoic coating panels and a pump jet propulsion system. It had been sitting motionless in a thermal layer for 14 hours, using the ambient noise of commercial tanker traffic as acoustic camouflage. Its torpedo tubes were flooded and loaded. Its firing solution on the Lincoln had been pre-programmed since 0300 hours. The three-dimensional trap was complete. Surface threats from the north, a subsurface killer from the south, real-time satellite intelligence from Moscow and Beijing above. The U.S. Fifth Fleet was facing a multi-domain saturation attack of a sophistication never before attempted by any regional power. Because for the first time in history, a regional power had the orbital infrastructure of 2 peer competitors feeding it live kill solutions. A dead silence fell over the Lincoln CIC for exactly 2.3 seconds. Then, the counterattack began. At 03:22 hours, Vice Admiral Daniel Kessler broadcast a single encrypted burst to the E-2D Hawkeye orbiting overhead. Execute Lightning Wall. The command activated a pre-positioned counterspace protocol developed specifically for this scenario. 2 EA-18G Growlers launched from the Lincoln's deck in under 90 seconds, climbing in full afterburner to 38,000 feet. They carried the AN/ALQ-249 next-generation jammer pods, but also a classified payload, the High-Energy Radio Frequency Denial System, HERDY-2, a directed energy weapon capable of saturating 200 kilometers of satellite downlink frequencies with broadband interference at 8.4 gigahertz. When both Growlers reached station at 03:24 hours, they activated HERD-2 in synchronized pulse mode. The effect was instantaneous and total. The Russian Persona 2M satellite's encrypted downlink frequency was flooded with interference. The Beidou 3G4's telemetry stream to the Bandar Abbas ground station was severed. In the IRGC facility underground, 4 signals intelligence operators watched their screens go simultaneously dead. The real-time carrier position data, the orbital eyes that had made their missile so lethally precise, was gone. Iran was flying blind. The next NOR battery firing solution was now 48 minutes stale, and 48 minutes in modern naval warfare is an eternity. At 03:26 hours, 2 F/A-18F Super Hornets from VFA 41 Black Aces rolled in from Angels 18 with AGM-158CLR-ASM smart missiles. The Qeshm Island launcher battery, now precisely located by the E-2D Hawkeye's surveillance radar, was destroyed in a 4-second strike sequence that left nothing above ground level. Simultaneously, the USS Wayne E. Myers 5-inch Mark 45 gun opened fire on the Siraj-class fast boats. its automated fire control tracking 6 targets at 52 knots with the cold precision of a system that has never doubted itself. 3 boats were destroyed. 2 executed emergency turns and scattered. 1 vanished into a radar shadow behind a coastal oil platform. Below the surface, the USS Springfield was a Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine running silent at 400 meters for 19 hours, fired a single Mk-48 ADCA-P torpedo at the Iranian UNES. Not a killing shot. The torpedo was programmed to detonate at a 20-meter offset beneath the UNES's keel, generating a massive hydraulic cavitation shockwave. The Iranian submarine lurched violently, its propulsion shaft thrown into emergency stop, its crew hurled against bulkheads. The UNES broached, forced to the surface involuntarily, was immediately bathed in the search beams of 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters. A plain language message was broadcast on Channel 16. Kilo-class submarine. You are surfaced and targeted. Transmit surrender signal or you will be destroyed in 60 seconds. The countdown reached 47 seconds before the UNES transmitted a single distress code. It was at this exact moment that the mystery of the 6th NOR missile was finally solved. An NSA SIGINT intercept revealed that the 6th missile had been remote detonated, not by the US Navy, but by a third party. The detonation command had been transmitted on a frequency used exclusively by Russian GRU Special Operations. Moscow, watching Lightning Wall neutralize their satellite downlink in real time, had cut their losses. A missile continuing on 48-minute stale targeting data would almost certainly strike a civilian tanker in the crowded strait, creating an international incident that would expose Russia's covert role in the attack and constitute an undeniable act of war under international maritime law. The GRU had self-destructed their own client's weapon to protect Moscow's deniability. The Kremlin had flinched. The battle lasted 22 minutes. Every Iranian asset was neutralized. The Strait of Hormuz remained open, but the geopolitical detonation was already in motion. At 4:15 hours, the White House Situation Room received confirmation that NSA cryptanalytic intercepts had captured the encrypted handshake protocols between the Russian Persona, the 2M ground station at Nakodka, and the IRGC Bandar Abbas facility, hard cryptographic evidence of a direct Russian military operation against US Navy forces in a live combat theater. Not a proxy, not plausibly deniable, a direct Russian act of war. President Trump held a classified call with Moscow at 5 o'clock hours Washington time. The precise terms of that conversation remain classified to this day. What is known is that within 4 hours, Russia announced the completion of scheduled maintenance on the Persona 2M system and its immediate withdrawal from operational coverage. The Beidou 3G4 satellite executed an unscheduled orbital correction burn that moved it 340 kilometers outside the Gulf of Oman footprint. China issued no statement. China never does. But the USS Springfield, still running deep and silent after the engagement, continued tracking an acoustic contact beneath the thermal layer long after the Iranian UNES had been brought to the surface. Something quieter. Something with a harmonic profile that matched nothing in any Allied sonar database. Something that had been lying motionless at 380 meters throughout the entire 22-minute battle, recording everything. At 0547 hours, the contact turned northwest and vanished into the deep water off the Pakistani coast, leaving behind a single acoustic signature the Springfield sonar operators will spend months trying to classify. Whatever it was, it had been there the entire time. It had heard every transmission. It had watched every missile fly, and it had chosen deliberately not to act. The Strait of Hormuz is open today. The ceasefire is holding, barely, as Israeli strikes on Lebanon continue to threaten its foundations, killing more than 250 in a single night. The fragile framework brokered in Islamabad may not survive the week, but beneath the geopolitical headlines, a far more dangerous reality has been confirmed. For the first time in the post-Cold War era, 2 nuclear peer competitors directly integrated their military orbital assets into a live kinetic attack on US Navy forces. The firewall between proxy warfare and direct great power confrontation has not just been tested. It has been crossed, quietly, without a declaration, without a press conference. In the dark, at 3:17 in the morning, in the narrowest waterway on Earth. The question is no longer whether Moscow will act directly against US forces. The question is whether they already have in a dozen other theaters, and whether we will ever have the intelligence to know. What do you believe was lurking beneath that thermal layer off the Pakistani coast? Share your strategic analysis in the comments. We want to hear from the military minds in this community. If this tactical breakdown exposed what mainstream media won't tell you, hit the like button and subscribe to Military Network so you never miss the next classified debrief. The next operation is already underway, and this time, the target isn't a carrier. It's the communication backbone that holds the entire Western alliance together. Thank you for watching, and stay sharp.